All right, so we're just coming in as we were talking with Lina and decided that we need to start recording because otherwise we're going to miss some of the points that we want to actually talk about on this episode.
The best
So
ones.
the best ones, exactly. So welcome everyone to the Integration Lens podcast. This is our third episode. We're very excited about it. We thought about we wanted to make this episode very practical and talk about something that we both can really relate to, and we think that a lot of other people can very much relate to. And that is this idea of our fears of or our own selves getting in our own way of pursuing some of the things that we would like to pursue in life. And also, the core idea is that we want to explore it from the lens of integration rather than from the lens of change.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning what's the difference between change and integration. And I think the main idea there is that all of us have tried to change something about either ourselves or the people around us, which, it's always a bad idea. Uh, but when you talk about change, it implies that there's something now that you don't want a part of it or all of it to be in this new state, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And integration, this is why I love your framing about it, and just the whole idea behind this work is that it's not the pursuit of eliminating something for the sake of something else, but just seeing how does it serve the new thing that we want to emerge. And I think, when we try to skip over that part, we end up missing
Yes.
something that's really a key. And oftentimes I call it the gold, that you're digging and you're trying and you're pursuing, but you end up missing the real true gold.
Mhm.
That is that transformation that happens when you integrate all
Yeah.
of those learnings into the new way of being of what you want.
Yeah, I think, obviously that is the core idea of the architecture of self-leadership, that this is an invitation for us to step into our best self. And the difference is, we hear this all the time, oh, change is hard. But there's a reason maybe why change is hard, because maybe we're not supposed to be trying to change. Maybe we're supposed to be trying to integrate what's already there.
Mm,
But if from early on, we get the messages that we need to change something, that maybe something is not right with us, right? And a lot of those messages already come from other humans who are imperfect and who probably are afraid themselves and are trying to tell us based on what they think that we should be this, right? In order to be safe or successful or whatever that means. So if we look at it from the perspective of integration, what does that mean for us? How we are trying to grow as individuals and try to accomplish these things that we want to accomplish in life.
yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oh, I really wanted to start exploring this idea of when you think about it, setting a goal or having something that you're pursuing, in a lot of times things stop us and that come in the way. And very often, if we dig a little further, we discover that um, the very first things that stop us are our own thoughts.
Mhm.
And oftentimes they kind of lay dormant underneath. You don't even notice them.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, in my presentations, a lot of times I'll do this exercise that shine a light on these thoughts. I have everyone write down things that they want to have in their lives. And then the very first question after that is, who would like to share with the room?
Mhm.
And immediately, everybody just kind of takes a step
Mhm.
back. That question specifically, I designed it to catch, what happens in those first seconds when we want to, or I'm invited to share with the world or with someone else. What are these desires that we have
Mhm.
for ourselves? I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
I'd love to explore how to catch that internal dialogue. And then we can see, like, how do we work with it? How do we integrate it?
Mhm. Well, I think there are a couple of things to me that come to mind. One of the things that often, even for ourselves, we don't allow ourselves to name our desires. So when you do an exercise like that, I bet for a lot of people, the initial struggle isn't even, oh, I want to speak up about it. It's about, what is it that I really desire? Right? Because when we talk about our architecture and what kind of creates that internal architecture, our humanity, right? Our nervous system is part of it. And that nervous system is trying to protect us. And it is acting out of its implicit memory. So a lot of messaging that we got in childhood impact how we even define our own desires.
Mm,
And then I think another point you're making is then even if people identify it, sharing it more publicly is another step of exposure, another level of exposure. And again, the higher the exposure, the higher usually the protection from the nervous system. So understanding that there is going to be a discomfort and that there is going to be a reaction within our bodies often that will come up is helpful. Well, I think often we hear people speak about self-sabotage
mm,
or limiting belief when they talk about something like this, like getting in our own way. And something like self-sabotage or limiting beliefs automatically assumes negative intent. And the idea of thinking about our own architecture from a perspective of this is our humanity, it has a positive intent. So it cannot be sabotaging us.
mhm.
We're not sabotaging ourselves, right? So if we're not sabotaging ourselves, then what's going on? And then we can start getting curious and say, okay, well, this is coming from protection. What is it protecting? And we can kind of start the excavation of that internal architecture and understand, okay, I think this is the message that's preventing me. This is the identity commitment. These are some of the things that live in my biography that are preventing me from taking these steps. And then how do I go about working with this architecture rather than against it to move forward?
Right. Yes, the word sabotage has never kind of set well with me because I don't relate to it. It's like, of course, I'm, engaging myself with all of my capacities to pursue whatever it is that, I want to pursue. But when you talk about and name self-protection, now, okay, that has a different ring to it
Mhm.
because it implies that positive intent that you're speaking of. It's like, oh, okay, it's trying to protect me from something. What am I trying to protect? And then what am I trying to protect against? So those are
Mhm.
again two different questions
Mhm.
to explore in that. But I can resonate more with that. Just the understanding that we are okay. And then
Yes.
going from there is a huge unlock.
Right. I mean, if the starting point is there's something wrong and what do I need to fix versus there's nothing wrong, everything is right. How do I get curious about it? And I think we all struggle with it because it's very subtle. Often we don't even identify it as getting in our own way. We just kind of feel stuck, right? Like, oh, why can't I move forward in this area? And it's because, our nervous system, we kind of understand some of the more obvious signs and reactions of our nervous system, like the fight or flight, freeze, right? When it's really activated. But often say that the nervous system also whispers.
Mm,
It whispers to us and it kind of is like, no, that's a little bit too exposing. That's too dangerous. Are you sure that you want to do that? Here, maybe you should do this because this is something that you've been really rewarded for. So that's much safer,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I really recognize that in myself because I always thought, well, I'm such a learner, and when I started to, think about, okay, starting a business, it was instantly, "Oh, but I still need to learn all of this. Oh, I need to get this certification." And so that was a kind of a natural path for me, whereas becoming visible and actually stepping more into that business realm felt very uncomfortable,
mhm.
very exposing, very threatening. I've since then uncovered several different identity commitments that were holding me back.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm saying is sometimes it is such a whisper that we don't even realize until we are like 10 years down the line. And we feel, oh my gosh, I how am I still not moving forward? And this could be in trying to pursue health goals. People struggle with that. Trying to pursue writing a book like yourself. So, yeah, I would ask you when you have approached sometimes some of the bigger challenges, when did you feel either the whisper or kind of that holding yourself back? And when was it when you would actually be able to move forward? What would be the difference there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's difficult to hear the whisper
Mhm,
because I think there are very few and rare occasions where we don't put on the lens. And so having what they call the beginner's mind, right? When you're open to it, it happens very rarely. And I think a lot of times happens through sometimes very difficult experiences where it puts you in a situation where the only choice you have is to open your heart and open your
mhm,
mind. I can think of a couple of different examples. And one was, early on when I wanted to come to the United States and explore that. And when I was so excited about it and so hopeful, I would share with my friends, but then they would ridicule me,
mhm,
just very openly. It's like, what are you thinking? What? This will never happen. And then just kind of watching myself just bearing um, that idea and not and starting to be very selective about who I shared it with.
mhm,
But I didn't let it die. And it
mhm,
was probably in my childhood enthusiasm and the belief that I had inside of my own mind that everything is possible, regardless of what the circumstances around me said, that I shared that idea with my pen pal,
mhm.
which was a girl from
Oh, oh,
Cyprus, and she had come to Sofia to play with her team, and I was just one of the ball girls that was giving the balls back. But anyways, we became pen pals, and I shared that idea with her, and she then said, well, did you know that in America you can get a scholarship if you're really good in a sport? And that's kind of how that happened. But I think what we're talking about here is, when's the moment where from just this nebulous out there, too big to even speak of idea, um, how do I turn it into like, wait, I can actually do something and start pursuing it? And
mhm,
even when I thought about sitting on the couch watching the Olympics on TV and kind of thinking like, what if I could? What if I could learn to play this sport? And what if I
mhm,
could play in the Olympics? And I think what ended up happening is there was again uh, an episode of a lot of challenges that come along the way and really testing to see like, oh, are you ready to commit and are you willing to do what it takes to really have it? And when I started thinking beyond what it looked like on the outside, so for example, for the Olympics, you can think, oh, it's this fabulous lifestyle with flying all over the world, playing beach volleyball, making a lot of money. But I realized that may not be my reality, right?
mhm,
So what would continue to push me to pursue it? It was the realization that there was something bigger
mhm.
that lay beyond the outside image and expression of it. In both of those instances, coming to the United States, living here, or playing in the Olympics, the the deeper reason behind it was that I wanted to have my life in my hands. I wanted to create a life where what I got to experience depended on how hard I worked at it, not some invisible rules that would continue to change. So that was the unlock for me, was going and digging a lot deeper than the surface to find what was really motivating me.
Yeah, I really feel and hear a difference there of instead of focusing on this event or this outcome or some kind of a goal, it's more of almost pursuing curiosity. I can relate to it so much because I think that is what allowed me to go to the States. And I've mentioned in the previous episode that I wasn't really adventurous. I don't consider myself very brave at all. And, but whenever I allowed myself to pursue something, it was usually because there was curiosity rather than expectation of
Mm,
something specific. And that's what I'm hearing from you as well is that while the Olympics for someone maybe who would have had much more of and expectations for themselves to perform at a certain level, that would have put so much more expectation. But for you, it was like, I want to experience this. I want
Yeah.
to experience it. So then I'm just going to focus on what's in front of me. And
Mhm.
we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but it is this ability to look at what is in front of me, what is kind of in my agency right now, then rather than trying to focus on the outcome, is what really gives us the power to move forward.
Yeah.
That's the difference that I'm hearing from you.
Yeah. It's what you say, and the other word that comes to mind is there's a piece of identity that's being revealed, a
Mhm.
piece of perhaps it's through this experience, I'm getting to know who I truly am, the totality of my being and my human experience here
Yes.
is being revealed through what it looks like on the outside as a lifestyle or perhaps an experience or having something. What the true transformation that's happening is at the level of identity of who do I believe that I really am,
Mhm.
and in pursuit of that, what I'm capable and willing to do to reveal it.
Mhm. I wonder what would have been different for you if, you had been training and let's say someone would have put that expectation on you, like this is what defines success, rather than you were kind of defining success for yourself. Because that's what I'm really noticing with myself is that when I frame my pursuits as I'm curious what will unfold. I really want to see what unfolds from here. I want to immerse myself. I want to practice. I want to pursue what is that next thing in front of me, right? How can I be curious about this process rather than focus on that outcome? That allows us to then really stay in our
Yeah.
own agency.
I think that's a really great practical question, for someone listening to this conversation can walk away with, and walking away with, how can I be curious? What would curiosity, what would having curiosity about this experience, how would that unlock some of the parameters that are keeping me stuck in this situation? But the capacity to be curious is not something that we have when we feel threatened, when we feel that the walls are closing in on us. And I'll share with you a question that I like to ask in that situation that has helped me in very difficult situations, but also helps my clients, whether they're like an executive or even working with kids. Sometimes they really respond well to this question because it it allows us to see that next step, which I think is what you mean by finding the agency in the
Mhm,
moment. What is something that we can do right now, today, in this moment, that continues to take us further and further in the direction that we want to go?
mhm,
So, the question that is very helpful to ask is, whenever we find ourselves in a difficult situation, what is this difficulty, this challenge, this obstacle that has come in my way right now, even in a conversation that I may be having with, my spouse or my kids
mhm,
or whatever it may be? If it had a positive intent, what would that be? I think that just asking that open-ended question
mhm,
invites the curiosity that you're talking about.
mhm. Yeah. Because again, I think that if you think that whatever you are navigating, that you're running into something that is against you, that will just invite more protection. And it doesn't allow that movement, the flow to start moving forward. So what you're saying is let's release that negative intent and allow for us to be curious about this next step and what this opportunity may be presenting to me. And
Mhm,
like you said, when there is a high threat, it's much more difficult. So having that compassion, that capacity does impact our ability to move towards something that is more uncertain or maybe that is higher stakes. And so I think this is my experience, and I know some of my clients also struggle with this, is that when they finally identify their desires or something that they want to move towards, they think of this really exciting but overwhelming outcome.
Hmm.
And so, their capacity, they don't currently have the external, but especially the internal capacity to try to perform that because it is the process that allows us to build that internal capacity and that inner safety that allows us to move forward to some of the higher stakes and the higher exposure or whatever that danger that it represents.
Um, I like the idea in sports. A lot of times we use cues.
Yeah.
So it's what and you know it takes practice to do it. It doesn't. It's not just like one time I decide and it's overnight and it's done. But it's a practice to notice and to create a different set of behaviors that you cue through noticing a certain reaction within ourselves. So, for example, um, whenever I know when I have like a deadline or when I have a big proposal, for example, to turn in or, um, something that I'm really excited about, but it seems big and, a little scary. And can I really ask for that much money, for example, or can
Mhm.
I really, whatever it may be, I find myself going around the house and doing all the little things that that I can do before I sit down and put that on paper. And I noticed the other day because my husband is like, what, why are you humming around? And I'm just like, I know I have this proposal to turn in, but and he's like, you're procrastinating. I said, I'm not procrastinating. I'm building confidence is what I'm doing. So now I can laugh about it, but
Yes.
you can imagine how it could be debilitating if you're not aware of it. And
Yes.
it feels like, yes, it feels like self-sabotage and all the negative things that can happen. So I think one of the things that has helped me is that I notice that when I do have something big, and if I'm choosing in the moment to do something that may not even relate to that, but it's,
Mhm.
oh, I'm trying to show myself that, and, like I'm trying to build confidence with those little steps. And rather than saying, stop procrastinating,
Mhm.
which will be the change desired outcome and negating my experience in the moment. What the integration would invite me to do is to kind of look at it and it's like, oh, look how cute. I'm trying to build confidence so that
Yeah.
I can take that next step. Okay, what would give me even more confidence and not, discard the entire architecture of how I've what I'm trying to do, but
Yes.
actually, be curious and invite what is this learning? What is this experience actually helping me do?
Mhm.
And then I can sit down with more awareness, with more confidence, with
Mhm.
appreciation and maybe some humor
Mhm.
towards myself and then write a proposal
Yes.
and ask for double what I was thinking.
I think it's a beautiful example, and I so relate to this. I it's that productive procrastination, and I think this difference between not being aware of it and it having the reins, meaning it will either make you avoid completely or push through. Where if you push through, your nervous system will activate. You may do it, but you are going to feel awful about it and it's going to be as hard next time.
Hmm.
Or avoiding it completely, right? Oh, well, that's not, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy, right? Whatever that looks like versus, hey, okay, I see what's going on. I understand it. There is activation. It's important to me. It's high stakes. And I call this leaning on our well meaning friend. So the well meaning friend is saying, oh, well, don't do it just yet, just wait. And you can say, okay, well, I'll lean on you a little bit. I'll lean because it gives me an ability to regulate a little bit, process, give myself the time. And then you actually returning to the step is building self-trust
Hmm.
because you now have a self-trust of, oh, I can, you know, pause and return to it and take the step. Still going to be a level of discomfort, but it is so much more regulated discomfort, and you are way more in your discernment and in your agency than the other two examples. So I love that because I experience this all the time. And at the beginning, I was very hard on myself, and I would like make myself sit down, and I was like, why is everything so effortful? Everything
Hmm.
felt very effortful. And then I started to, okay, try to understand, speak to my architecture a little bit, try, where is this coming from? What is it trying to tell me? What's its intent? How can I kind of take some of the burden off and say, hey, okay, I can do this. I'm going to work through this discomfort. I'm going to come back to it on my terms, right? And I know that I am building this confidence. And you call it confidence, which I think it is in the end, but I think it goes through that building of self-trust,
Self-trust. Yeah, I like
you
that.
know,
I like that a lot.
developing a self-trust that I can take the next step. Not only can I take the next step, but I can take the next step in congruence with what's going on within me rather than pushing against something or fighting with something. I think that's huge. That's a big difference.
It's all the difference, right? It's all the difference. So I think it's really helpful to kind of go through again and review what are some of those practical steps or tools that we talked about today. Um, and I can like I'll just start with what's at the top of my head, and then you can interject and tell me. But we talked about, right off the top, we talked about the difference between seeing self-sabotage, which is has that negative connotation, as self-protection, and then having, inviting compassion,
Mhm,
which can then lead to curiosity. So I
mhm.
think curiosity as a tool, it's a huge unlock. I mean, it not predetermining the outcome of
Yes.
what something is. Like to me, that's what curiosity is.
Yes. And I
Um,
think the self-compassion that you mentioned is a prerequisite to the curiosity. I think if we don't have that self-compassion, that comes a little bit from that relationship, right? From that understanding of our internal architecture that this is not against me, it's for me. So that whole framing, but also understanding this is what's going on inside of me. And then having compassion for that is what allows us then to step into curiosity
right.
rather than stand in this kind of a war almost with ourselves.
And one way to invite a little bit more capacity for
Mhm,
curiosity or a different outcome or for whatever we may need in the moment is to remember to ask ourselves the question, if this experience, negative experience that I'm going through right now, whatever it may be, had a positive intention, what would
mhm.
it be? Having that open-ended question and
Right.
that filling in the gaps. It's another very practical, amazing tool that you don't need anything uh, more than what you already have. When you remember to think and ask yourself that question, to start to show you what is the next step that I can take.
Yeah. And often we know that challenges are the invitations, the best invitations for growth. We always grow in the midst of our biggest challenges. And so when you ask, what is the positive intent of whatever is going on, it allows you to think about what may be the invitation here for me, which again gives you an ability to step more into agency and going back to understanding that, oh, I don't need to find confidence to do this thing. I just need to find and start developing self trust. So, how can I start developing self trust in the small steps that I'm taking rather than try to rely on some kind of sense of confidence? Because it really never comes unless we develop it through building that internal self trust. And that comes through, I like to call them the little brave experiments. They're brave because they're still going to be uncomfortable. There's still going to be a level of discomfort. But I think if we are expecting that discomfort and we start to learn to be in relationship with it, like you just described, how if I procrastinate a little bit, okay, I'm building capacity, I'm still taking the step. Or maybe today I'm not prepared to take this big step, but I can take this step. Right. And that all of that gives information to our nervous system that we've got it, we can move forward. We don't need this protection and it starts to lessen. So learning to build that self-trust and that inner capacity through these small steps that I like to call small brave experiments.
I love that. I love small breathing. I'll remember that. So next time I'm bustling around the house and my husband says you're procrastinating, I say, no, this is a small brave experiment and I'm
That's
building
right.
trust.
Well, and what I like about the idea that it's an experiment, it all goes back to the curiosity, right?
Right?
If it's an experiment, then I don't know the outcome. I am just collecting data.
That's right.
Right?
That's
I am
right.
collecting data. What is going to come out of this? And it really comes through that relationship. I think that that for me anyway, it's a very helpful framing that we're kind of in a relationship with ourselves. And that relationship is positive, right? We're on our own side. So trying to become someone else, like we were given this one human, this humanity. We can't, like, why is everyone trying to change this human? Right. Right. Like, let's try to make this the best human with what it's been given
Right.
rather than turn it into someone else. And I, I really do think that that unlocks freedom for self-expression and for pursuit of different things. It's a different way of looking at things. So integration, not change.
Yes.
So it was a great conversation. Thank you so much, Lena, for your time.
Thank
And
you, Daniela.
we're looking forward to our next conversation. If anyone has any ideas on topics that they would like to send in, please let us know. And then also, if you would like help with coming into relationship with your own architecture, either Lena or myself would be very happy to help you with that. And we also utilize the Enneagram that we often mention as a tool for that. So please let us know. But we look forward to the next time.